We are. Except it just says stream starting soon. Okay, chatbot's on.
What did we determine? Facebook was a little faster
What?
as far as the responses without the lag.
Yeah, it is. But I've got all the chats.
Well, I mean,
Uh,
I can't see anything anyway, so it's like when I'm talking and then you just cut me off. It's like I don't know what you're talking about, so I'm like I have no idea what's going on right now.
oh, okay. Well, I'll say like Facebook comment or
I'm
something.
trying to follow. I'm trying to follow, but
I'll say Facebook comment or something of that nature.
all right.
All right, let's get this started. Oh wait, no, hold on. Let me see if we're actually live everywhere. That'd be a good thing.
You're live on Facebook.
Cool.
Yeah, stream starting soon.
I gotta edit the details of that. I don't know why it keeps saying. I can never get it to correctly say what I want it to say. Oh, let me tag you. Let me tag you.
I think on Facebook.
Yeah.
Oh, you did. It showed up. Or unless it's just because you show up on my notifications. There you go.
Bam.
Okay.
All right. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen listening in, we are getting this started. This is Armchair Gridiron, episode 4. Unmuted. Welcome, welcome. Sorry we are on Wednesday instead of Tuesday. Things get complicated with schedules and stuff like that. Like an Avril Lavigne song.
Like an Avril Lavigne song.
So let's just jump into it. Wait, what are we at? No, that's not it.
I don't know what we're doing first.
Week 4 recap.
Yeah.
You had 3 games, I have 3 games. Go ahead, what's your first game?
I mean, it's the first game's gotta be Eagles Packers. I think that's I don't remember the order I gave them to you in, so I'm just trying to remember.
Oh no, it doesn't matter what order, just
I mean, this one's important because it's what caused me to lose my first fantasy game, to knock me from the heights of the unbeaten, because the Packers defense got me a -1.
Jesus.
What? They were averaging like 15 points the first 3 weeks, and then they get a -1, and it's mainly, it had very little to do with anything else, but they had absolutely no turnovers, and they were leading the league with a +6 turnover ratio. So it was like, all right. I mean, not only didn't help that they allowed 5 touchdowns to be put up on them. So,
yeah.
You actually gave Jordan Howard his best game of the year, by far, probably in the past couple of years. Because even with the Bears, they underutilize Howard a lot. He's rarely gets as close to 100 yards in a game. He had 87 on 15 carries, so that tells you everything you need to know. I mean, and that's the thing. Carson Wentz did his damage. Like, he didn't have all that many deep passes at all, but he was 16 of 27 for 160 yards and 3 touchdowns. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, the thing is, though, like, all that said, he got hit a lot.
Yeah.
And that's one of the big things about it, is that Green Bay's defense had really woken up this year, like surprising a lot of people. And they really were like, they're going to get 7 sacks against past his Eagles offensive line. They had 0 sacks, 0, no turnovers, no sacks, and that's what ended up killing me in fantasy was that the defense did nothing, and that's the thing. Aaron Rodgers had an interception and a fumble. He threw the ball 53 times. Statistically, 34-53 for 422 and 2 touchdowns. That's a good night, but just wasn't enough to do it. And obviously at the ending, as we all saw, but when you lead your team in rushing yards, that's a problem.
It was a big week for the backup quarterbacks replacing their injured quarterbacks, and it seemed to be a bad week for these Super Bowl winning quarterbacks.
Yeah.
We'll go into Tom Brady in a minute. Fun fact about the Eagles, they are 5-0 on Thursday primetime games under Doug Peterson. Did you know that?
Yeah, it's hardly surprising because when you really think about it, their relevancy, Thursday Night Football is a relatively new concept, and the last time they were really relevant was the last time, when they made the last Super Bowl and they lost. It was with McNabb and they lost to the Patriots. I don't remember which one it was, but that's how long ago it was.
That was the one T.O. came back for.
Yeah, or something like that.
Yeah, Roy Williams gave him a high ankle sprain in Week 10.
Well, that's the thing.
I remember that. That was a dope-ass game.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that they haven't been relevant in a very long time. So when you get Doug Peterson, even under Chip Kelly, they were interesting, but they were never like studly until Doug Peterson came in and turned them into what they were. And it's unsurprising that since they've been growing in relevance, even before their Super Bowl win, that they'd be 5-0 on Thursday nights. That's not surprising to me at all.
Our next game, or a game I want to talk about, the game that I picked, Texans-Panthers. I have to bring up my Texans. I don't want to bring up my Texans.
Oh, yeah.
I'm thinking, everybody's saying in Houston that Bill O'Brien's the problem. I think the big problem was early in the game, Kenny Stills went out, hurt his ankle. The offensive line is still a problem, but the play calling where DeAndre Hopkins made a pass, that could have gone. Like, they didn't need to do a tricky play like that. But again, here we are another week, Texans 2-2. They haven't been defeated with a full touchdown. So there's a positive and a negative takeaway out of this game. I was really impressed with Cam Newton's backup, Allen.
Yeah, well, I told you about him last week, man. He's someone to bear watching.
Panthers win the last. Panthers 3 wins in last 12 games out of all the Kyle Allen starts. So statistically, he's only won 3 games out of his last 12, but man, he's.
Yeah, and that's not, that's not the judgment on the quarterback. That's just a judgment on the situation the team was in. So
good defense. What do you think? Does Bill O'Brien got to step up his play calling? Are the Houston fans right on this?
No, I don't think that's necessarily it. I think he just kind of plays. He may play more into what he perceives he has rather than what he actually does have. Considering, like, you really look at the stats, you got this pretty good 2 decent pass catching running backs, and they barely touched the ball receiving out of the backfield. So you don't have any of those play action passes you can get with Duke Johnson and Carlos Hyde. When you think about it, when the Texans were doing really well, is when they had Arian Foster, when they had this running back who could change the game.
Yeah.
And you could balance your team out. So when you got Deshaun Watson, he didn't throw an interception, but he didn't throw any touchdowns. And going back to that magical number of 160 yards, but in a losing effort, he was 21 of 33 for 160 yards. You look at the rest of the stats, you're like, damn, he targeted a lot of guys. DeAndre Hopkins had 5 catches for 41 yards, but that's telling. Not a lot of deep routes, not really pushing the ball down the field. And you can argue that's for the lack of a deep threat, but I would argue you still have Will Fuller healthy. DeAndre Hopkins is not slow.
Yeah.
There's no reason. And got Kiki Kuti. Is it Kiki Kuti?
Sounds right.
whatever it is. It's too many E's in that name. But he's not a short, slow, dink and dunk type of guy. He's a guy that stretches the field too.
Yeah,
So
which is why he's perfect in the fourth slot. Kenny Stills went out with an ankle injury early in this game. It kind of messed up the wide receiver core and how they're lined up. Because without Kenny Stills, you basically have that same core from last year.
Will
And
Fuller, yeah.
and teams have that scouted, especially the Panthers. But you know, I don't know with Duke Johnson and Carlos Hyde. I think that they would be home run type of running backs, but really, like Tunzel is the only offensive lineman in that bunch. Really, on that offensive line, he's the only one worth a damn.
Well, yeah, you got to, when you get sacked 6 times, there's something wrong with your offensive line.
And I guarantee if you look it up, it wasn't Tunzel's doing. Tunzel wasn't given the fault for those sacks.
Right.
But Zach Fulton, maybe Titus Howard probably were.
Yeah.
I know the center. I've been asking for them to replace that center now for a while. Mance, I believe his name is. Might be his backup. But that center is absolutely terrible.
See, I see Nick Martin.
Nick Martin.
There you go.
He's what's his name's brother
Uh,
from the Cowboys.
I almost said Doug Martin.
Actually, I think it is Doug Martin.
It's no Doug Martin. Hold on.
Well, anyway, it's not like a JJ-TJ situation where they're both equally good.
Zach Martin.
Zach Martin. Yeah, it's not a TJ-JJ
Yeah.
situation. Even though J.J. Watt's other brother also on the Panthers.
TJ.
No.
Wait. No, there's 3 Watt brothers, and none of them are on the Panthers.
I thought one of them was. Oh, maybe they were on the Chargers. He was on the Chargers. Never mind. He's on the Chargers.
Yeah.
Um,
Eric Watt.
That's right. But Panthers, they didn't look like a playoff team, but the Texans sure as hell didn't either. It's making me wonder. I mean, it's making me think how these divisions are shaping up. Our next game.
You can't leave just yet because I completely disagree with you about the Panthers not being a playoff team.
I mean, look who they beat.
Here
They're 2-2.
Christian McCaffrey, 27 carries, 93 yards, touchdown, 10 receptions, 86 yards. You got this rock solid running back who can do everything you need him to do. And I mean, quite frankly, and you got a pretty decent backup as far as Samuel.
I'm not sold on the Panthers.
I'm just saying right now. I mean, they won this game. They are 2-2. They are very much in the mix, so they could easily make the playoffs.
They are the same record as the Texans.
They got the tiebreaker though, so that's what I'm saying. Right now, the Panthers are being, not the Texans.
Well, curse you. How about that? How about that? Can we move on from my terrible team's loss?
Sure, my terrible team hasn't played this week, so we're good.
Yeah, we can't talk about the fucking Jets.
Yeah,
did the Jets lose in the bye week? How does that work?
They certainly didn't win.
Same score, Patriots, Bills, same score as Texans and Panthers. But something I'm learning about the Patriots, even when they're off, they can still beat one of the best defenses in the league at this point.
Well, that's how they beat them. They beat them with defense.
Yeah.
That's that's the thing is that their offense didn't beat the defense. Their defense essentially beat the offense.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of
Speaking of which, I don't know how I won my fantasy game. I don't know how I'm still undefeated. Oh, I am because my opponent had
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, I was lucky. But Tom Brady only 4.8 points produced.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Yeah, he's and this is everyone's like, "Oh, he's weak." And it's like he's getting older. He's getting a little like it's harder for him to play when he plays a legit defense, and the Bills definitely have one.
Mm-hmm.
They've had one for a couple of years now. The Bills are a tough team, and that's why I'm kind of looking forward to the Jets playing them again, just because by the time we play them in Week 7 again, we should be fully healthy with everyone back, and then we can actually see what we can do against the fucking Patriots for fucking once. But I mean, one of the bigger telling things about this too, I mean, they barely won, but I mean, like Sony Michel led them with 63 rushing yards. James White was their leading receiver with 57 yards. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know about how the Bills managed to stay in this as long as they did. And that's the thing is, I mean, you look at this is how they won. No, Kyle Van Noy had 2 forced fumbles. There was how many 3 interceptions for Josh Allen. Matt Barkley had another interception himself.
Oh,
The injured Allen, and then I can't remember. Yeah, Allen had 1 fumble, but I think they recovered it. And that's the thing is and then the Bills defense, as good as they were, had no sacks.
none.
No sacks, and that's what it's like. You just can't win this game if you can't get to the quarterback. Quarterback rushes and pressures and all that stuff, fine, whatever. But you have to sack the quarterback. And then you look at the stats for the Patriots defense. What am I looking at? 2, 3, 4, 5 sacks. 5 sacks, 4 interceptions. Like that tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah, disrupting that Bills offense for sure. Tom Brady, 16-2 as a starter when he goes and plays in Buffalo.
Well, I mean, these are hardly surprising stats.
It's an interesting tidbit.
Well, here's a more interesting.
You just hate talking about your fucking rivals, is what you.
I'll talk. No, I hate talking about the evil empire, but I'll talk about a true rival, the Bills. Frank Gore joins the 15,000-yard rushing club.
That did happen.
And in another, I think it's a 240-something yards, he'll take over 3rd place. He'll overtake Barry Sanders. Over all career rushing yards.
He has Barry Sanders, Walter Payton, and Emmitt Smith to go through.
He could probably, if he plays another year or two, he could probably pass up on Walter Payton. I don't think he's ever going to touch Emmitt.
Even Emmitt's last season, Emmitt still put up 900 yards. But he would have to do. Frank Gore would have to do 4 more years of football, and I just don't see that happening.
He would have to pull out a well over 1,000-yard season the next 3 years to do it. I mean, as much as I like the guy, as much as I love the inconvenient truth, he's not gonna. I don't think he'll be able to play that long at that level. Like Adrian Peterson, I was surprised is so low on that list. Like Adrian Peterson's only 8th on that list. He's behind Jerome Bettis, behind the bus.
Well, but Adrian Peterson had a bunch of leg injuries, a bunch of knee injuries, surgeries, what have you. And then he beat his child with a switch. That was a thing that he did.
Well, yeah, all that said and done, Adrian Peterson, you just as dominant as he was, having that 2,000-yard season, you're sitting there going, this guy should easily be just stomping over everybody. He should be well ahead of Frank Gore, the level he was playing at for years. But, unlike Adrian Peterson, Frank Gore, it didn't matter what team he was on.
Yeah, exactly.
He played on the Dolphins, for Christ's sake, and put up a lot of yards. So.
Now, what was your 3rd game that you wanted to talk about?
Oh, God. Well, it was definitely Patriots-Bills. It was probably the Broncos and Jacksonville.
Broncos and Jacksonville. I'm trying to look and see what happened in that game. Oh, yeah, the 26-24 game.
That was probably my game of the week just for how it ended.
Leonard Fournette having an incredible game.
Out of fucking nowhere. The guy who's been struggling to run the ball basically his entire career outside of his rookie year, which was barely over 1,000 yards to begin with. I think it was like 1,100. He finally goes off to have his first monster day. This is what everyone thought he was going to be when he came into the league, because he was drafted the year after Ezekiel Elliott. And after Elliott had the rookie year he did, everyone went, shit, Fournette's going to be the second coming of AP. Didn't happen. When you have 29 carries for 225 yards, you're obviously doing something good.
And it obviously puts you in the top 5 running backs in the league right now by yardage.
Well, and that's what
was it Leonard Fournette, or was it the fact that this Broncos defense is not as good as it used to be?
They're definitely not as good as they used to be. It didn't help that Bradley Chubb tore his ACL and is out for the rest of the year. The Broncos finally did get a sack. They hadn't had a sack all year, and they finally got a sack this game. I believe it was Von Miller. They ended up having 3 or 4 sacks in this game. Von Miller had 2 himself. They had 5 sacks all day. So they finally were able to get to the quarterback, which is their biggest thing. They no longer have the secondary they used to. Chris Harris Jr. is still excellent. However, they're not the Super Bowl defense that we were used to seeing. We're long gone of the days with DeMarcus Ware and everything like that coming off the edge, along with Von Miller, a younger Von Miller. The story of this, I mean, outside of the obviously beautiful and glorious Gardner Minshew, who I mean, the one thing about this,
Uncle Rico, baby, I said it. Don't sleep on Uncle Rico.
I mean, I think everyone's said that since like week 2. Like, holy shit, who's this
Also,
guy?
don't sleep on Daniel Jones.
I'm gonna blow your mind on this. Blow your mind. You ready for his stats on the year?
Minshew?
Yeah.
Oh, his completion percentage?
No, I'm not even worried about that.
Okay.
I mean, it's pretty good. It's almost 70%, right?
I mean, it's 69.420, baby.
Yeah, no, but right here, 905 yards, 7 touchdowns, 1 interception.
It's pretty good.
That ratio is ridiculous.
Yep.
Like, he does not. I mean, you look at his stats, like every game against Denver, he actually had his lowest completion rating of the whole year at 57.6. He had slightly lower yards per average. Still threw 2 touchdowns. For one, the longest was 32 yards. He had a 97.2 rating. It's like this guy can actually play the damn game. Not bad for a kid who actually didn't want to play quarterback in NFL, wanted to become a coach.
Wants to be a coach.
But talk about valuable experience. So outside of talking about Gardner Minshew in this game, you have to talk about just the fact that the Broncos offense finally fucking woke up. Because outside of Philip Lindsay having those couple touchdowns last week, or the week before, I should say, this past game, I mean, they finally realized they have to give Philip Lindsay more carries than Freeman, because Lindsay is the more dynamic playmaker. 9 carries, 53 yards. That's almost a 6-yard average per carry. That should tell you everything you need to know about him. You had Emmanuel Sanders had 5 catches for 104 yards. Cortland Sutton had 6 for 62 and 2 touchdowns. Finally, they finally got to the Noah Fant, their first-round tight end. Like, Joe Flacco had 3 fucking touchdowns in this game, 303 yards. I mean, the offense finally they finally figured it out. Against a pretty good Jaguars defense. And that was the thing. This came down to a field goal as time ran out. That's how the Jaguars won. The Denver Broncos were up with 1 second left, and the Jaguars came back with a last-minute field goal.
Who's their kicker? Houston could use that guy.
Who's that? The Jaguars?
Yeah, the Jaguars kicker.
Oh, what's his name? Lambo. That's his name.
And our last game, unless you had another interesting tidbit about that game.
No, I mean, we really talked about Gardner, Fournette, and I mean, again, I was talking about in the preseason before we even drafted. I mean, Cortland Sutton. I told you, watch out for him. He's been averaging at least, I think, 9 targets every single game. Finally put up 2 touchdowns.
You did. You said Cortland Sutton. You called it. Cowboys Saints will be my last game to look at. Now, fucking Cowboy fans and Saint fans were going at it before this game even started, and then even like after. To me, both teams have nothing to be excited about. The Cowboys, because shit finally crumbled down and they faced a good defense. The Saints, because they didn't even put a touchdown on the board, just won with field goals. What lost this game for the Cowboys?
I mean, what lost this game for the Cowboys is Ezekiel Elliott had 35 rushing yards on 18 carries.
Yeah, they couldn't get the running game working.
His average was 1.9 yards per carry.
Michael Gallup was out. That was one of their deep threats.
Well, Michael Gallup's been out for a couple of weeks, so that shouldn't be the effect. You have Randall Cobb, who still has more than enough speed. Amari Cooper. But I think that's also your biggest issue is when Jason Witten's your leading receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Receptions.
I think it's easy to cover Cooper and Randall Cobb when Michael Gallup's not on the field.
Well, that's not even just the thing. Is that Amari Cooper, and that's why he struggled in the last few years he was with the Raiders. And everyone's like, well, the Raiders aren't using him correctly. It's like, well, yeah, but if you're a playmaker, it doesn't fucking matter. You get open, they throw you the ball. That's what they do. I mean, it doesn't matter if they're using you incorrectly. Do you think they've ever used Antonio Brown incorrectly? Probably. You would never fucking know it. Obviously, nowadays you would. But
I
like
think if
Julio,
you use Antonio Brown in general, you're using him incorrectly now.
yeah,
Like
I'm
that's
not saying
the
but and that's the thing is that right now is like this should have been for the Cowboys. This should have been not an easy win, but it should have been a win.
it should have been a win.
But their defense, because Bridgewater is not a deep ball throwing quarterback at this stage right now. He's getting back into the game. He's more of a game manager, and that's kind of how he was when he was with the Vikings. So, but 23 to 30 for 193 yards and interception.
Dinkin and Duncan.
Yeah, and that was the thing is that the Cowboys did a good job holding Alvin Kamara at bay. 69 yards rushing and 20 yards receiving. Like he didn't have much of a night. Michael Thomas had 9 catches for 95 yards. I mean, that's all they did. They beat him with field goals. Mm-hmm. And that's how you lose is when you can't put points on the board. The Saints defense, this is a out-of-division rivalry game, especially since last year. I remember last year when all the Cowboys fans talked shit about they rolled in and they beat the Saints, and the Saints should have over the golden child, and there's no way the Saints should have lost this game. You just lost to Teddy fucking Bridgewater, who came back from almost having his leg amputated, and you allowed them to outscore you with field goals.
Yeah.
Your offense wasn't even good enough to get more than 1 field goal.
Is Kellen Moore a good play caller, or have they just had easy opponents?
So here's the thing about the play calling the Cowboys do, and a lot of people have said this. A lot of analysts, people much more intelligent and up to date than I, so I'm going to go ahead and lean on them a bit on it. But the offense that you see with that Kellen Moore calls is nothing that they've seen it before. It's the same plays they've run for the past 5-6 years. All they do is they do a lot of movement and a lot of smoke and mirrors in the beginning, and then they run the same play they've been running for 4 or 5 years. So all it's meant to do is confuse you. The thing is that defenses do the same damn thing. And if you know what the team's going to do, the razzle-dazzle they do before they call a play, you can identify the moment this guy starts doing his shit in the backfield.
Yeah.
So it's not surprising that the Saints figured him out because, again, rivalry game. But at the same point in time, it's the Saints overall are a better team.
Yeah.
And they've proven it even since Drew Brees got injured. They're doing a damn good job with Teddy Bridgewater. They're showing how complete a team they are without Drew Brees. Wait till he comes back.
When he comes back, I think they're a playoff contender even without Drew Brees. Teddy Bridgewater is a great, pretty much game manager. The time of possession, there was a vast difference. Saints won it, by keeping the Cowboys from scoring and hogging the ball throughout the whole game. I will say, boring as fuck. And, the Saints fans and the Cowboys fans had me laughing. Because Saints fans immediately went to Facebook Live and started posting shit. But,
yeah,
all of it just seems unnecessary when the Patriots are going to win it all anyway. So let's go to news and fantasy.
Honestly, it's hard to argue.
We got only big piece of news: Melvin Gordon coming back. What should Austin Eckler owners do?
I mean, here's the thing. I mean, I had Eckler on several of my teams over the past couple of years, regardless of whether or not Melvin Gordon was playing, because regardless of it, Eckler still gets about 5 to 10 touches a game when Melvin Gordon's running healthy. We don't know what level Gordon's at as far as his cardio, as far as his ability to play in a game right now. They thought they would sprinkle him in last week against the Dolphins. They obviously didn't. If I were the Chargers right now, I would play it very carefully, keep running with Eckler. I'm not obviously the coach or anyone that makes the decisions. You'll see them definitely push him in there. He'll probably get a lot of carries, a lot of targets. I don't expect him to really go off all that much, mainly because again, this is his week 1 game.
Yeah.
He's not, he's not game ready just yet. He's got to knock that rust off, and it's against the Chargers, which is a rivalry game. Chargers have a pretty damn good defense. Denver is desperate, though. Excuse me, I said that backwards. They're playing Denver.
Yeah, I was like, what?
I got it backwards. I was just looking at this games, and I just saw Chargers, yeah. So
I was like, what's going on?
Denver's playing desperate. Denver's defense woke up, so did their offense. So if this turns into a shootout, it's going to be a hard call. But if you got Eckler, you can't trust him. You can't trust he's going to get the touches. You can't trust he's going to do it the way he has been. And that's the thing. Some people in our league, in the Sleepers League, was going, he was arguably the best running back in fantasy thus far this year. It's like he was one of them, yeah.
Yeah.
But he's not the man. He's not the guy there. He is now second fiddle to Gordon.
And Melvin Gordon, it should take till week 11 or week 12 where we can see Melvin Gordon be how we're used to seeing him. Yeah.
Yeah, his midseason form is going to come in November.
Yeah.
No, and that's if you have Gordon, you're going to be starting him because hell yeah, you spent that fourth round pick on Melvin Gordon. You're going to fucking put him in your lineup at a discount. All that said, I mean, if you have Eckler, you can't justify in starting him. So hopefully you have a better option on your bench. Hopefully, but if you got Josh Jackson, just drop him.
Okay.
Yeah, he's going to see absolutely no carries now. Like, not that he had all that many before because Eckler was owning it, but he was definitely being sprinkled in. So barring injury, you can drop Jackson and just throw Eckler on your bench because as much as you want to, it's not like the Patriots where you can start Burkhead any other week and he might get you 20 points. The Chargers just don't run that way. Anthony Lynn, it's Gordon's ball and he's going to keep it. So
Vontez Burflicht. I know I butchered that.
No, you did good.
Maybe I did. I don't know. Quattro was I'm sorry, I'm doing that Key and Peele sketch. Anyway, Vontez Burflicht is suspended for the rest of the season based off of past incidents after being ejected from last week's game for what I thought was an incidental contact.
So I looked at the video a few times just because I didn't get a chance to watch it in game, and I heard about it on the radio.
I had watched it, and it looked incidental to me.
Well, so here's the thing. Burfict this is his 4th suspension in 8 seasons playing in the NFL. 7?
Yeah, possibly, yeah.
Something like that. But
isn't he the one that kind of paralyzed what's his name from the Steelers?
Oh, he fucked up Antonio Brown.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking of Shazier.
Shazier, I think Shazier just got that on a tackle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Shazier's a linebacker. So.
My bad.
No, you're good.
I don't know the Steelers.
No, but he definitely leveled Antonio Brown, took him out of a playoff game, and Brown didn't play the next week, and that's just didn't help the Steelers probably losing to the Patriots, if I recall correctly. And here's a fun thing about it, and because I watched the replay several times just because I heard it on the radio, and I'm like, okay, and the guys were talking about it, well, it looks like Doyle was starting to raise up. But when you actually watch it, Doyle's down, he kind of heaves and he's going back down before Burfict's even there. And Burfict lowers his helmet and aims at his head. He doesn't try to pull up. He doesn't try to move. The guy's down. You all have to do, his knee's already on the ground. You just have to touch him and he's down.
So do you think the punishment was just?
Yeah, because it's not his first, second, or third time. And here's the best thing. So, ironically enough, the vice president of football operations, John Runyon, was a longtime Eagles offensive lineman, also considered one of the dirtiest players in NFL history.
Yes, he was.
The letter that he wrote to Burfict about the hit, I'm going to read it word for word because it's scathing and it's kind of ironic.
Go ahead.
So, there were no mitigating circumstances on this play. Your contact was unnecessary, flagrant, and should have been avoided. For your actions, you were penalized and disqualified from the game. Following each of your previous rule violations, you were warned by me and each of the jointly appointed appeal officers that future violations would result in escalated accountability measures. However, you have continued to flagrantly abuse rules designated to protect yourself and your opponents from unnecessary risk. So,
I mean, I
and
can't argue with that.
he could have not. If he hit him one thing, he lowered. He hit him with the crown of his head. He lowered it and speared his head.
Uh,
Like he, regardless if you think he's getting up or not, wrap him up, clothesline him. I don't care, but don't go helmet to helmet. And that's what they're. I mean, they're trying to get away. The CTE is killing the NFL. It's concussions. That's why they're constantly going in there, trying to protect players with harsher penalties for people who go after helmets hits. And it's gotten a little extreme where like you can tap the quarterback's helmet and oh my god, roughing the passer. But at the same point in time, it's if you're doing it knowing that you're doing it when you shouldn't do it, then that's why they flag you. And that's what he's done. It's not like it was incidental. He did it intentionally.
I'm going to have to watch that video again.
It's like the Dominican Sus like stomping on players in a fucking pile. We see
Yeah, I'm sure he has his reasons.
Yeah, it's like we see you doing it. And it's like there's cameras everywhere, you fucking moron. What are you doing? And John Gruden's angry and is like he's pissed off. I'm like I would be too. You already fucked up the whole Antonio Brown thing. Now you're losing this other guy who you probably shouldn't have picked up off of free agency anyway.
Yeah, whatever you do, don't call him. Your phone call might get recorded.
I mean, well, yeah, exactly. But that's the thing. It's like just like Antonio Brown, Vontaze Burfict is a damn good football player. He's incredibly fucking talented. But it's this
he
shit.
He just gets angry.
Well, and that's the thing. So, like, think about any of the players that can't seem to keep their nose clean. Richie Incognito.
Are you talking about cocaine?
Well, no.
Richie Incognito sounds like a name of a guy who does cocaine.
He's an offensive lineman. He definitely does not do cocaine.
He has to do cocaine with a name like Richie Incognito. Maybe in the off season.
He has to bully players on the Dolphins.
That's that dude. Yeah, he bullied what's his name?
Martin.
Yeah, all that cocaine hazing.
Yeah. But that's the thing is that you got these guys who just can't straighten it up, and then some guys, every so often, some guys down the line go, oh shit, I'm not a kid anymore. I've wasted some prime years. And they wake up and they start playing good football. Maybe Vontaze Burfict figures it out. Maybe he doesn't. Probably not.
Perfect. I'm calling him Burflict.
I heard the L a few times. I didn't point it out, but yeah.
Whatever.
But he was when they drafted him, they knew there was issues with him. The Bengals drafted him actually, and he was with him for a few years.
Yep, I remember he was with him last year.
Great fucking player, but he just can't keep his head clear. And that's the thing is that he's suspended the rest of the season, and they should have indefinitely suspended him until he passed some classes, took some.
Oh, I like that.
Because they do with some people, especially any of the people that Ray Rice or anyone like that that's had a domestic abuse or some kind of flagrantly horrible assault or something in the off season.
They make them take those classes, but
they have to go to anger management. They have to go to mitigation and mediation courses with their significant others or what have you. I believe Richie Incognito had to go to some courses on how to
Cocaine Anonymous.
Basically be a better person. And that's, they really should have done that with Burfict. They just suspended him the rest of the year. But more than anything else, they still have to let him back in the league too. It's not an indefinite, but they still have to. They can still sit here and go, you know what, that wasn't harsh enough. You're suspended indefinitely. They can still do that. And that's the thing. Like he's just done it one too many times, and they're going. And this comes from John Runyon going, "You were fucking warned."
Mm-hmm. Many
times. This is your fourth time. What are you not getting about it? And shit. If it was the American prison system, you probably would have been put to death already.
I'm sure hitting someone like that though makes your cock feel really, really good. Makes it feel like stone, like concrete.
Well, who the hell knows? I don't know what gets him off, but that might be it.
Tell us about Shaq Barrett before we move on to the quick picks.
Barrett. All right, so this motherfucker.
First of all, what team is he on? Because I don't even know who the fuck you were talking about.
I'm gonna walk us. I'm gonna walk us there. He was undrafted in 2014. Got picked up by the Broncos. Played pretty well. Was there for like I believe it was like 4 years. Let go. Signs with Tampa Bay this offseason on a 1-year deal for $4 million. It is we just finished week 4. The man has 9 sacks.
It's pretty unbelievable.
The sack record set by Michael Strahan is 20 and a half. And that was set in 16 games.
22 by J.J. Watt in my Madden league.
In the real world,
proud of those numbers.
We have a Todd Bowles, why he couldn't do this with the Jets, defensive coordinator, taking this kid that the Broncos had given up on, and perhaps they shouldn't have, speaking of their defense not being what it used to be, and has 9 sacks in 4 games. Now, really extrapolate that. That's 18 and 8. Defensive linemen get lucky lanes open for him. If he's 18 sacks at 8 games in, holy fucking shit. 6 sacks in 16 games.
Well, that's just the projected. I mean, nine sacks in 4 games is impressive.
That's if you extrapolate it, because right now, really think about it. So you have how many games left? 11 left, right?
Yeah.
So if he gets 1 sack every game for the rest of the season, that gives him 11 more sacks onto the 9 he has. That puts him at 20.
I think Leroy Glover, when he was on the Rams, I mean, I know that's an old player to mention from like the mid-2000s. Before he went to the Cowboys, Leroy Glover had a 17-sack season. He got 16 of those sacks within the first 8 weeks, I do believe, and then just never his sack progression. I mean, he was projected to break the sack record, and he didn't do it. I don't think anybody's going to beat Strahan's record, but I don't know. This guy might.
So the thing is that right now, if I remember correctly, Aaron Donald just missed it by, I think he had 20 sacks.
Yeah, it needs 20 and a half.
I'm trying to remember. It's 22 and a half sacks, not 20 and a half. 22 and a half sacks.
Damn, I didn't even break it in Madden.
My bad. Sorry, my math is off on that one, but still look at it. He'll destroy it one way or another.
I hope so, because 9 sacks in 4 games is still impressive.
It's impressive one way or another, and that's the thing. So right now, I remember correctly. Let me see here. Justin Houston had it with the Chiefs, and he had 22 sacks. And he got there by having 4 sacks in the last game of the 2014 season. So Von Miller is not going to get it this year, obviously, but he's averaging about 12 sacks a year, 11, 12 sacks a year.
I think DeMarcus Ware got close with like 18 or 19.
Wouldn't surprise me,
yeah.
Especially in his prime, and probably with the Broncos too. I know he probably got up there with it.
I want to think it was with the Cowboys, actually, when it was his prime years with the Cowboys.
I mean, it's possible.
He kind of went to DeMarcus Ware went to Denver pretty much in the tail end of his career, though.
Yeah. But I mean, well, that's the thing too, is that it's like right now, like sack records are weird because, believe it or not, the sack record before Strahan broke it was Mark Gastineau from the Jets, and he had it with 22. And that's how long that record stood. So we can sit here and talk about all these other guys that get close, but that's the thing, you have to actually break it.
Yeah.
And Donald was supposed to be the one to do it.
This guy could do it. An unsigned free agent, started in the league 2014.
Yep.
Let go by 2 other teams.
On a 1-year contract with the Buccaneers.
And on a 1-year contract. Now, do fantasy owners start the Buccaneers defense? Has the Buccaneers turned it around? Do the Buccaneers get enough takeaways to even justify starting their defense? I mean, sacks make points, but sacks and turnovers win you games.
That really depends on your league settings, because not all leagues really value defenses, and they actually devalue them a lot. So a lot of leagues I played in over the past decade or so, your defense should just basically not lose you points.
Mm-hmm.
The highest scoring defenses in some of these leagues were like 4 or 5 points a game. They didn't really reward you for sacks or turnovers. Like an interception for a quarterback, if he threw an interception, they would knock off 2 points. But if the defense got an interception, they would get 1 point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And really punished you by teams putting points up on you. So, an example in our sleeper league, against the Giants, right? That was a decently high-scoring game. They were really doing. Let's look at the Rams too. I mean, that was a hell of a game.
Todd Gurley came back for me this week.
There you go. So, in our sleeper league, the way they reward you. So against the Rams,
I can just go to it right now.
They had 2 sacks, 1 forced fumble, a fumble recovery, and 3 interceptions and 1 defensive touchdown. Got you 16 points.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of the fact the Rams put up 40 points on your defense. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So right now, like even going against San Francisco,
but it subtracts 4 points for 35 plus points allowed. So if they had just kept him at 0, then the Buccaneers would have had 26 points thrown up.
Wait, here's a suggestion for you then. So against Carolina, they allowed 12 points. They had 3 sacks, a forced fumble, a fumble recovery. Right? No interceptions, no touchdowns, still got you 10 points. So if you're in a league that gives you decently favorable scoring for defenses, Tampa Bay is worth a pickup and a spot start. After Green Bay really shit the bed with me, I'm definitely not starting them against a very pissed off Cowboys team. So I decided to pick up the
Where are they at? Where are they playing?
The Buccaneers?
No, Packers, Cowboys.
At Dallas.
I'd still start Green Bay's defense.
I'm starting the Buccaneers against New Orleans.
Oh, no, definitely do that. Yes, that would be good.
That's what I mean. Yeah, you have to pay attention to those matchups, and that's a matchup you cannot ignore.
And Shaq can get to Teddy Bridgewater.
And he's gonna get to anybody right now. And I think that's what you're gonna see is that they're gonna let him run wild. Hey, he's doing a great job. You don't rein that back. You let him keep going until he can't go no more. So I think that's what you're gonna end up seeing with it. They're gonna let Shaq Barrett go. Todd Bowles has been waiting for that edge rusher for the 5 years. He was the head coach of the fucking New York Jets, 4 years. Shaq Barrett just came out of nowhere and has given him he's a golden goose.
I might go ahead and trade for him on Madden since he's a best kept secret. Since we're predicting games, let's go to the quick picks.
Uh-oh.
Let's bring out the schedule. First game, our Thursday night game, the Rams and Seattle. The Rams at Seattle, I should say.
Right.
Todd Gurley kind of woke up last week, not by rushing, but in receiving yards.
Right.
I'm gonna have to go with Seattle though.
It's gonna be a hard call on this one, mainly because
I'm really just going with the home field advantage on this.
Yeah, it's hard to argue against a home field advantage, especially when it comes to Seattle. I mean, anytime you got the 12th man, which you lift from Texas A&M, regardless, you didn't steal that from anybody. I think the Seahawks are still figuring themselves out as far as a team, what they're going to be, what they want to be.
Well, 3-1's a good start.
3-1's a good start. This is not a game to take lightly for either one of them. The Rams are, I don't want to say embarrassed that they let Jameis Winston put 55 points up on them. I think, but you've also seen that with the Rams too, is that their offense finally woke up as well. You said Gurley, Robert Woods finally went off. These were all things that a lot of us that have on fantasy teams, I have Robert Woods on a couple of my teams, were really waiting to happen. Seahawks are interesting though because they're not as good as their run game has been. It's no longer their defining characteristic.
Yeah.
And I think between Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, who's been pretty consistent the whole year for somebody that nobody wanted to sign, that nobody really believed in. Um, I think it's going to be a good battle. I think the Rams are going to take it, though, at the end.
Very nice. Jacksonville at Carolina. I'm going to go with Carolina. As far as better backup quarterbacks go, I think Kyle Allen.
You're taking them over the Gardner?
I mean, they beat the Cowboys. Jacksonville's defense doesn't have it figured out. I mean, Uncle Rico's good, but Carolina's defense was really, really good against the Cowboys. If they just go in with the same game plan against Jacksonville, I'd say they'd have better results. Maybe even, I'm sorry, the Texans. Carolina faced the Texans. They're definitely gonna. I think they're gonna beat Jacksonville. I think it's gonna be close, but I think they're gonna beat Jacksonville.
I mean, it's possible. I think this is not going to be an easy game for either one of these teams. Obviously, both 2-2, and you got that kind of that rivalry that the expansion team rivalry they have. Right now, though, currently Jacksonville is the slightly better defense. Carolina obviously has the better running back. Again, putting aside Leonard Fournette's 225 yards against
if Leonard Fournette does what he did last week, then yeah, but I think that's just a 1 week thing.
I as much as I want Christian McCaffrey, who's on almost every single fantasy team I have this year, to have another game like he just did, I think he will have a pretty damn good game. I still think the legend of Gardner Minshew grows. I'm sorry. It's hard to argue. 7 touchdowns, 1 interception.
69.420%.
Yeah, it's like he is careful with the ball. He gets it to where it needs to be. He doesn't have a favorite receiver necessarily. He does enjoy throwing it to Chark. Chark, though, this week took a little bit of a backseat to the past few weeks. But he can get that ball to where it needs to go. Not only that, but I think that's also part of why Leonard Fournette had such a big game, is that you suddenly have to respect the Jaguars passing game. You didn't have to with Blake Bortles. You have to with Gardner Minshew because he will make you pay.
So does Nick? Do they bring Nick Foles back? Like if Nick Foles gets healthy, is he the starter?
No. Nick Foles has a hell of a. They gave him a big contract.
Yeah.
So he's not going anywhere. But Gardner Minshew rolls in, takes you to the playoffs.
Gardner Minshew wants a contract from somewhere else.
Well, maybe. So Nick Foles, remember, he won the Super Bowl, and then the next year, here comes Carson Wentz again, and he goes, cool, I'm your backup.
Yeah.
Because Nick Foles is sitting there going, I'm great. This is my legacy. I'm good. I'm a legend. And then Wentz gets hurt again, and he goes on and damn near wins it.
He wins another one, yeah.
So, and that's the thing with Minshew, it's just a matter of time. Basically your first year, you're rocking it, and listen, they're gonna make it known to you at the end of the year how they feel about you. If you rock out and you take them to the playoffs, and you maybe even possibly take them on a deep run, they have to keep you.
We got a question from YouTube. From Me Get Wins. Me Get Wins wants to know, should I trade McLaurin for Lockett? No. There you go. We keep it short and simple here.
No, I'll give you a quick explanation.
Go ahead.
So right now with Lockett, he's the official, unofficial number 1 wide receiver on the Seahawks, right? Which is a run first team. The big thing that sets the Redskins apart is they're going to be always playing from behind. Right now, they currently don't really have a quarterback, according to Jay Gruden.
And this week they're facing the Patriots.
This week they're playing the Patriots, so they're going to be playing from behind. McLaurin is injured, granted. I think he had a rib injury, but he should play. He is undoubtedly their number 1 wide receiver right now on a team that's going to be playing from behind. So he's going to get his looks. He's going to get his targets. He's going to get his catches. He may even get his touchdowns continuing. You would be hard-pressed not to start McLaurin every single week that he's healthy because of the stats he's had. Lockett hitting miss, but he's a home run hitter. When he has a game, he has a game, and he's also your kick returner. But you can't trust that every week on a run first team. The Redskins don't even have a run game. You got to throw the ball. So hold on to McLaurin. And not only that, but hold on to him for another week or two. And if he comes back and has 2 more great games, you don't trade him for Lockett. You can trade him for somebody bigger.
I am typing that to him in YouTube.
Chris said no.
Chris said no. Keep McLaurin for another 2 weeks. I didn't know I could reply to YouTube here instantly. That's pretty cool. Anyway, so hopefully we answered your question there. Me Get Wins, also great name. Next game, the toilet bowl of the week. The 0-3-1 Arizona Cardinals versus the Cincinnati Bengals.
The best thing is one of these teams will get a win, so
I'm gonna go with the Bengals on this, though.
It's yeah. I mean, I want to, and the big story obviously about that is John Ross is injured and he's going to be out for at least 6 to 8 weeks. I don't know if AJ Green is coming back this game. I think they said he has been in the game. He has been practicing, I should say. Right now, I really have to give this to the Cardinals. They've played some really tough, close games. That one tie, obviously, in week 1 against the Lions. They are feisty. It's a first-year head coach learning how to head coach and a first-year quarterback learning how to quarterback in the NFL. I think they're going to roll into Cincinnati and win pretty handily.
I disagree. Next game.
I think Joe Mixon's hurt, too, so it's like right now, if anything else, it comes down to injuries, and the Cardinals are vastly more healthy.
Next game, I'll take over from here. Atlanta versus Houston. Atlanta might be 1-3, but I see Houston fucking this up somehow.
Nah, I'm giving this to you. I'm giving this to Houston.
You're gonna give this to Houston?
Atlanta is they're 1-3, and they are losing horribly.
Yeah.
They're not an offensive team anymore. Like, something's wrong with their offense, and Houston is sitting there going, "Fucking give it to me."
Well,
this is a game that will get you 3-2, make you feel really good about yourself. I mean, right now, like, I believe the Titans beat them last week. I mean, for Christ's sake, what's going on in the world?
Here's the thing, and this always happens with my team. Like, a team will be looking bad, and then they'll face the Texans, and then whatever terrible streak that team is on, it'll end right when they face the Texans. So, like, you're saying, where's Atlanta's offense? They're gonna show up against the Texans.
In Houston at 1:00 Eastern.
Yeah, with fucking
found them.
Julio Jones having a 300-yard game and shit, and then like the Atlanta season's gonna completely turn around. Atlanta to the playoffs, Houston at the wild card. No, I can't commentate on Houston games anymore because I don't know what kind of team I have. I really don't.
Trust me, I know the feeling.
I don't know if they're terribly good or greatly terrible. So, there we go. Next game, Tampa Bay, New Orleans. Where I'm going to go with Tampa Bay after what you said about old Shaq.
Well, and the thing is that I think Shaq's going to have a great game, and that's why I'm starting him in fantasy. And that's where it gets tricky because this game is going to be determined by how Jameis Winston plays. And Jameis Winston is basically Ryan Fitzpatrick, except younger, taller, blacker. He will have.
All right, that's a hell of a third description.
He'll have great games. He'll throw 4 or 5 touchdowns, 500 yards passing, right? And then he'll have a game where he has no touchdowns, 200 yards passing, and 5 interceptions. It's such a night and day player you have there, and that's been the scuttlebutt in Tampa Bay is how long does Jameis Winston actually have with Bruce Arians as the head coach? Because Bruce Arians is not going to sit there and mess around with it. If he can't fix you, you're unfixable. So you better believe that Jameis Winston's on the clock, like it's ticking down on him. And he's felt the pressure. He's already had at least one really horrendous game this year, and he can't afford another one. And New Orleans defense, after what we saw to that really high-powered Dallas offense, granted against crappy teams,
I think it's an overhyped Cowboys offense.
it is, but their offense still able to perform against NFL professional teams, right? These are not scrubs. These are guys that actually are good enough to be on rosters, right? Not the greatest teams, obviously, but these are not. This is not a college team they beat.
Yeah.
So that's why it gets sticky. I think if Jameis Winston can pull his head out of his ass for long enough and not turn the ball over, Tampa Bay should win this pretty handily. But I'm giving it to New Orleans because I think he's going to have a horrendous game.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it'll be a pretty convincing win for Teddy Bridgewater.
Next game, Minnesota, New York Giants. I'm going Giants. The legend of Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes. Pew, pew, pew. Finds ways to win. Doesn't matter if he throws interceptions. He is a cyborg Manning. Well, I believe his legend carries on. Tell me why I'm wrong while I go refill on coffee.
I'll yell it so you can hear me.
No, I can hear you. I got the headphones.
That's why I disagreed with you. And you were like, oh, he did it again. And I'm like, he really did. You know, he had a little more than 300 yards passing. He had more interceptions than touchdowns. That's how you lose games. And fantasy-wise, he definitely did not do you any favors. I think he had like 12 points in fantasy. So you can't say if you picked him up and started him, you probably lost your game. But the pure and simple fact is that the Minnesota Vikings are a run-first team. They have one of the best wide receiver tandems in the NFL. The Giants' offense is a joke. I started Paul Richardson last week against the Giants because I thought he would go off against them, and he really didn't because the Redskins don't really have a quarterback to speak of right now. Minnesota is still an incredibly tough defense. They have better offensive weapons on a whole. Granted, Golden Tate is coming back for the Giants. Who knows what he's going to be and what he's going to be able to do for him. They still have Wayne Gallman starting at running back. Yes, he had a good game last week against the Redskins. So you have to give this to Minnesota, an angry, desperate Minnesota team trying to get their identity to the point where Cousins had to come out and apologize to Adam Thielen for not getting him the ball more. So you better believe that Thielen and Diggs are both going to rip the hell out of that porous New York Giants secondary. It's going to be 35-14. Going to spank them.
Not at all.
Spank them.
Daniel Jones.
If you have any Minnesota Viking offensive player that's starting, put him in the lineup.
Oh, did you know there will be a Manning in the NFL here in about less than 10 years?
The nephew?
Cooper right? Manning. Cooper Manning's son. Apparently the son of the best Manning never to play professional football. Cooper Manning. Apparently that was the word. Cooper Manning was better than Eli and Peyton. He just got like a back injury in high school and had to retire. But according to the word on the street, was Cooper Manning was better than Peyton and Eli. But Daniel Jones, don't start him in fantasy. Well, actually, I don't know. I think, look, the reason I love Daniel Jones, saw him in preseason, and it's just something about his throw. When the dude is on, that dude is really on. Now, how is it? Now, is he on from week to week? No, he's a rookie quarterback. He's going to be inconsistent. But when that guy gets older, hell, when that guy has just a right confidence boost, maybe a big win against Minnesota, maybe a big win against the Cowboys.
If you're in a dynasty league or you're in a keeper league, keep him.
Yeah.
He's going to be worth the investment down, maybe not even next year, too, because it depends on what they do in the offseason. They have to build around them. Saquon is as good as he is, as much as he'll keep the pressure off of Daniel Jones when he comes back healthy. They need legit number one wide receivers. I don't care who it is. Sterling Shepard's doing a good job filling in the best he can. Sterling Shepard is not a number one wide receiver. Golden Tate's days of being at least a high caliber number two wide receiver are behind him. He's 31, 32 years old, coming off a 4-game suspension. it's like they're going to have more targets. Yes, targets that can catch the ball. Yes, game breakers. No, they don't have any of that right now. They need to get that Plaxico Burress. They need to get those stud players on the perimeter. They just don't have them this year.
But Daniel Jones isn't looking like a bust. That's the important thing.
People, the thing is, and it still holds true, they took him way earlier than they probably should have in the draft. But I do like what the owner said. When you like somebody, you don't wait. It's like, fair enough.
And wasn't I saying that draft day? I was saying, like, I like that pick. I like that they picked him up.
And I said that too. It's like everyone needed a quarterback. Everyone knew they were going to take Daniel Jones. It was just a matter of when. And that's why at the 6th pick, everyone's going, ooh, like, really?
I mean, you got to give him more money, but other than that,
money. That's the thing. You get what could be the future, and that's why when people shit on the Jets on McCagnon for trading 2 second-round picks to move up to get Sam Darnold, it's like you didn't realize we could have this guy for the next 15 years.
Yeah. And
that's the logic behind it. You didn't even give up a 1st-round pick, and you got what could be the future of your franchise for the next decade and a half. So taking Daniel Jones as the 6th pick wasn't, you liked him, you got him. And especially if 20 years down the road, who's going to care if he's won you a couple of Super Bowls?
Let me go to next game, Chicago, Oakland. I've got Chicago. I don't know, though. Isn't Trubisky out?
Yeah, Chase Daniels is the.
Oh, I like Chase Daniel with that offense better than I like Trubisky.
So Trubisky, and that's what's ironic, because Trubisky was finally starting to wake up a bit. I think they realized they were playing way too soft with Trubisky, and that they finally let him open up a bit, because I think they really thought they were going to be a run-first, ground and pound, let their defense win the game for you type team. And obviously they were like, they've done all right thus far, but they were struggling, especially against Green Bay. It's like, that just didn't work out for you, did it?
Mm-mm.
So with Chase Daniels, there's a reason he's a backup quarterback. You're going against
He
Oakland.
did great behind Drew Brees.
Fine, sure.
Because he never had to play. Get it? Because Drew Brees.
No,
okay.
Exactly. But so that's the thing. So Oakland right now is at 2-2. They're playing decent football, not the best, but decent. I really think this is going to be a low-scoring game, but I think Oakland just currently has the better quarterback. They don't have as good a defense. Obviously, they have about the same number of weapons. But I have to give Oakland this in a really, really tight. This could be another 16-10 game.
By the way, next episode, remind me, I got to show you the picture that Madden used for Derek Carr. He looks like a Skepsy in the Dark Crystal.
Yeah, there was one they used for Greg Olson, and he was a black guy. It's like, what? And they were doing this, like, when it got released, they were sharing all the different ones, and even Greg Olson's like, it's like I'm like 20 years younger and a lot darker.
Here we go, the quick pick I've wanted to come to now. The Jets versus the Eagles.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
How is McCown gonna do again? Well, one, is Darnold back from the child's disease?
The child's disease. You mean the getting with hot ladies disease?
The strep throat. What does he have?
Or getting with hot men. I don't know. Like, you can get mono.
Was he mono? That was it.
So
rickets.
So he's been cleared for for practice, non-football contact, so he can't get hit yet. As he kind of put it, the spleen's going to do what the spleen's going to do, because right now the biggest danger with mono is that your spleen gets enlarged and can rupture, and all sorts of bad things happen when that happens. So he has to have a blood test to help determine his levels and see where he is.
I got to meet that chick he slept with.
Like I said, or the guy, whatever his preference.
I'm sorry, but when the sex is about to take out your spleen.
Well, hey man, you're doing a good job now. You're doing something right.
That's a lot of pelvic thrusting.
Either that or she's a big girl.
Which is fine. Is fine.
Ain't nothing wrong with that, man. Ain't nothing wrong with that. But the thing is that so we don't know just yet. They think it might be a Sunday morning decision, which kind of sucks. He is practicing. He has been running with the first team offense. They said the biggest issue is just trying to get his cardio back.
He's used to being behind a lineman. I'm sure a fat girl is no problem. I'm still on that.
So it's all right. Before this past week, I saw the Eagles on the docket with a 1-2 record and playing as poorly as they were, and I'm like, oh, thank God we might get our first win coming out of the bye week. And then they do this shit against Green Bay. We're still going to be without C.J. Mosley. We do get Quinnen Williams back, which is nice. So we finally get to see him in his second NFL game to see what he can really do. So our front seven should be a lot stronger, even though we don't have C.J. Mosley. Cashman's been playing pretty well. Philadelphia is just getting healthier. Alshon Jeffrey obviously had a good game last week. Deshaun Jackson, I believe, is still out. It's in Philly. Philly's defense is weak. Jets do have a slightly better defense as far as the turnover ratio. I cannot give this to the Jets, though, just because even if Darnold does play, he's still getting back into football shape because he's been out of shape. He hasn't been playing or doing anything, basically. They'll be very conservative. This will be a 21-10 Philadelphia win.
21-10 affair. Next game, Baltimore, Pittsburgh. I got Baltimore because it's damn.
I mean, honestly, what did Arnold Schwarzenegger say? If it bleeds, we can kill it. Baltimore, when they started off the season, everyone's going, holy shit, this is this team. Watch out. They're really showing what they can do, and then, uh-oh.
The Steelers still can't utilize, and I don't know if it's him, I don't know the way it's the offense, but Juju has not been a factor this year.
Yeah, well, and that's the so
I was expecting against Cincinnati. I was really expecting Juju to put up numbers. Not a huge game, but at least a 12, 13-point fantasy game. 0.20 points lower than Tom Brady at 4.5 points, 3 for 4, 15 yards.
Yeah, so that's the thing is that there's two different philosophies in the NFL when a quarterback gets injured. Either you have a completely different playbook for the backup quarterback that is tailored to their limitations, or you took the backups because they can play in the system that you have.
Yeah.
And Mason Rudolph has been playing pretty decently as a starter. When he's getting those starting reps, he's getting in there and doing his thing, which is actually why they moved Deontay Johnson in over Moncrief as a starter, because they know that this is the guy he was thrown to in the scout team offense. This is what they were doing that allowed them. They have a connection. So that moved him up. So I think you'll see Deontay Johnson getting a lot more looks. Juju's going to take a bit of a back seat until him and Mason Rudolph get that chemistry that him and Big Ben had. And that's going to be the biggest challenge, is that it's very sudden. You didn't have an off-season, the preseason, all that stuff to get on the same page and get working. And Big Ben had well over a year to work with Juju all last year to get that chemistry.
Yeah.
You're talking about Mason Rudolph not having chemistry with a wide receiver after 2 games. That's hardly surprising, which is why, again, Deontay Johnson has kind of come on the way he has, is because they had that connection in practice. He saw him a lot in practice. What was it? Yeah, 6 receptions, 77 yards, and a touchdown against the Bengals. That's why. Yeah, Juju had a bad game, and he had 4 targets to Deontay's 6. Tells you everything you need to know. Juju is still the number one. He's still the playmaker. He's getting those double teams. They know he's a good player. He doesn't have the quarterback that can get him open just yet. Encouraging, though, is James Conner starting to get more into the game. The teams are going to have to start paying attention to him if he can do it again this week. Ravens still have a tough defense. This is a rivalry game. Don't discount it. But this, I think it becomes an offensive shellacking. So I think the Ravens are going to unload as much as they can. And I think this will be a 28-14 Ravens win. They're going to thump them. But I think Juju wakes up because they're going to have to throw the ball a lot.
Next game, Bills-Titans.
Oof.
I can't call this one. I'd have to, with defense alone, I'll just go with the Bills. I thought they had an impressive showing against the Patriots.
Yeah.
Titans aren't a tough AFC opponent.
I think the Bills can do it. Mainly mainly based on the defense, yeah, and the fact that even though the Titans' offense has been respectable, I mean, they did put up 24 points last week. Mariota is still kind of a wild card. You don't really know what he's going to be week to week. We do know he's going to be. One thing we can say is he's going to be relatively unspectacular every single week. Um, it's a hard call. I have to give it to Buffalo too, just because it's right now, as far as quarterbacks go, Allen's just more of a playmaker than Mariota.
Next game, I don't even think we need to spend a lot of time talking about it because it's Patriots Redskins, 4-0 versus 0-4.
Yeah.
Patriots, I'm sure Tom Brady will have a better performance than he did last week, but even if he doesn't, that Patriots defense is very, very scary.
Very, very scary. You're probably going against Wayne Haskins. Bill Belichick eats rookie quarterbacks for lunch.
Mm-hmm.
If you have McLaurin, even Richardson, go ahead and start them because they're going to be playing from behind. They're going to be throwing the ball a lot. But
if that quarterback can even get to the ball, to him, who knows how many sacks the Patriots are going
to. Even if they complete 10 out of 50 passes, they're going to spread it out. McLaurin will have a decent day just because it'll be all garbage time. So yeah, it's not really worth talking about. 40-0 Patriots.
Next game, the 0-4 Broncos against the 2-2 Chargers.
Yeah.
Gonna go with the Chargers on this.
As much as I want to, I think Denver's gonna take this. I think Denver is figuring it out. Vic Fangio, is going into his 5th game as a head coach finally, and is going, all right, they're not out of the playoffs, obviously, but it's really fucking hard for them to do something. So when you got nothing left to lose, let's go ruin it for some other people. And this is a rivalry game. Sutton, Sanders all waking up. Flacco has something to prove. You got 2 pretty decent running backs. I mean, I think it'll be a battle. I think Denver's going to pull it up by at least 1 score.
Next game, I think we mentioned it earlier, Packers, Cowboys. Now, you were saying the Cowboys are going to be angry. This is also America's game of the week, by the way.
Well, it better be. So the thing
I'm going to go with the Packers because...
Yeah, as much as I want to, the chances are Devontae Adams isn't playing because of his turf toe. They still haven't figured out whether or not he's going to be able to go. We saw it happen with Aaron Jones last week. Aaron Rodgers had more rushing yards than his running back. That's not a good thing when you're going against a pretty solid defense with Dallas, especially playing in Dallas. Green Bay's defense, though, we can see what they can do because we saw it happen against New Orleans last week for the Cowboys. This could be another low-scoring affair. I do think if it ends up becoming a low-scoring game, Green Bay is going to win this, but I can't see it happening. I think Dallas is going to pull this out, and I think it'll be a pretty, 28-21 Dallas Cowboys win.
I don't know. It really all depends on how much time they leave Aaron Rodgers on the clock on the final drive.
Devontae Adams plays. If Devontae cannot go, it's Dallas all day.
Next game, which is the Sunday night game, Football Night in America. I hate the name of that fucking show. Anyway, Colts versus the 4-0 Chiefs. Gotta go with the Chiefs. Even though they almost dropped the ball last week, they almost got an L. I think the Chiefs take this against the Colts.
Yeah, first game that Mahomes has not thrown a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
So this is going to be an interesting game because every game Brissett plays, he gets better. T.Y. Hilton may or may not be back for this game. Tyreek Hill has been practicing this week. Just letting you know. They don't expect him to play this week, but he's getting back on the field. It's hard to argue against the Chiefs as much as I like Brissett's story, coming in for luck, doing what he's been doing. I think this will be a harder game for Kansas City. I think it'll be almost as hard as the Lions game. But yeah, I still have to give the Kansas City based purely on Mahomes.
And just Arrowhead Stadium.
It's Arrowhead, but I mean, the Brissett is still a pretty damn decent quarterback.
Oh no, he is.
So I mean, this is not going to be by any way, shape, or form a shutout. But I think Kansas City wins this pretty easily.
And the Monday night game, I think it's the Browns' last primetime game this season. But damn, have they been in a lot of primetime games as of late. The
Yeah,
Browns will be facing the undefeated, one of the three teams that are undefeated next to the Chiefs and the Patriots.
right.
Browns 49ers at Levi Stadium in California. I'm going to have to go with the 49ers. I think this Browns team is way better than Browns teams of the past, but I don't
Yeah,
think.
they fucking better be.
But I don't think. I mean, San Francisco has just kind of been like a surprise, I think. But I think the Browns are still a little bit overhyped for their own good.
So, that's the thing that you have to worry about, and I'll point it out here in a second. Nick Chubb finally had a great game running the ball, right? This is what everyone thought the Browns were going to do every single game this year. Chubb had 165 yards rushing. Landry had 167 yards receiving. It was crazy. It was crazy. Baker Mayfield had a decent day, still had another interception. So I mean, he's not doing great in his his ratio on the year. Uh, there, the story here is gonna be whether or not the Browns defense is able to step up and do their job against the 49ers. I do think the 49ers defense is going to step up and do a damn good job against the Browns. And I think we get to see Garoppolo coming out of the bye week just to see what he can do, see if he's gotten better, see if he's gotten more comfortable. Because he's been kind of inconsistent, but we're starting to see why the 49ers traded for him anyway back a couple years ago now. I think this is the Browns win. I think this could be, and this is based on whether or not they learned from this game against the Ravens. Whether they went, holy shit, we just did this against a great team, a great offense, and a pretty damn good defense. We were able to do this. They can't stop all the weapons we have. And if they've truly figured that out, then it should be a pretty convincing win. If they don't, then I'm giving it to the 49ers. However, I'm going to give it to the 49ers. I think their defense is rested. Garoppolo's ready to go. I think they're hungry. 49ers are hungry. San Francisco's hungry. In general, it's going to be a close one, but I think 49ers pull it out home.
I think the same thing. I'm not trusting the Browns and the hype around the Browns. I think it's going to be they're pretty decent 8-8, 9-7 possible team.
I think the Browns make the playoffs.
I think they'll make the wild card at least.
Yeah.
But they've just been hyped to no end. And it's almost left like a bad taste in my mouth. Also, anybody starting Gostkowski, the kicker, you need to bench him. He is now on injured reserve. Probably just cut him. Just cut him.
Yeah.
Get a new kicker. Fairbairn from the Texans is still out there. Of course, he has been on a missing streak as of late. But other than that, that is week 4 here of Armchair Gridiron. We gave you results. We gave you the picks. We gave you some fantasy advice. Next week we will return on Tuesdays. Next Tuesday for week 5 recaps, week 6 predictions. But we're like a fourth of the way through the season, and it's not really clear. I mean, we know a couple of teams are bad, but there's still those 2-2, 3-1 teams that we're not sure of. Plenty of those. Do you have, besides the Patriots, besides the Chiefs, is there anyone right now, and we'll go on this, is there any team right now that's absolutely surprising the fuck out of you?
The Ravens.
The Ravens at 2-2.
Their offense, the reason they're surprising the shit out of me is because we saw what Mark Ingram did with the Saints as the two-headed monster with Kamara. He was oft injured. He was a bruiser. Lamar Jackson had a rough rookie year. You saw the playmaker abilities. And that's the thing, is that you didn't see the scoring last year necessarily that you are seeing this year. You didn't see it from right out of the gate this year. They just started destroying people. And even in the loss last week, they still put up 25 points. I mean, that's it's when you score 25 points in a loss, your offense is not the problem.
Yeah.
I mean, it's when they're playing at such a level that they're clicking on almost all cylinders offensively. Granted, they struggled a little bit against the Browns, but that's a rivalry game. People forget they're in the same division. Those games get heated. Those games are hard to call. So I think when you watch the Ravens play in Pittsburgh this week, it's going to be a hard to call game. I think the Ravens can take it, but don't be surprised if Pittsburgh does too and puts the Ravens down to 2-3. But that's the thing, is that Baltimore is going to play a lot of other teams this year, and I really think Baltimore is going to embarrass some teams in the AFC this year, and they'll roll. I think they're not getting a bye week, but they'll roll into the playoffs pretty easily. When a lot of people, were not entirely sold on Lamar Jackson, so they've definitely surprised me a lot.
I'll go an opposite end as far as surprises go with a losing team. The Redskins. I'm kind of surprised with the Redskins. I was expecting maybe 2-2 at this point. I think the big question is, and by the way, they still haven't announced who their QB is going to be Sunday. But does Gruden keep his job with the Redskins? Does Gruden make it halfway through the season?
He will. No, you don't replace. No, and that's one of the things that I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but I don't think you would do it at this point.
Not at this point.
You have done it already. The thing is that you have to give Gruden the chance now to take. You barely got to see what Gruden could do with Alex Smith, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before all that happened, Case Keenum, we know what Keenum is, right? He's never rolled into a season with a stud quarterback, and people would say Cousins, and I would say, yeah, Cousins. So the point is that you got Haskins now, and Gruden is supposed to be an offensive-minded quarterback coach, right? So if you're gonna give anything, you got to see what Gruden can do with this kid. Give him the season. Put Haskins in there. I think the last thing I saw was Keenum was in a walking boot, supposedly. So don't be surprised if Haskins is your starter this week against the Patriots.
Hey.
Because Gruden already came out too, and people were giving him shit, for starting Haskins or whatever it is, and he goes, "Listen, I'm wrong no matter what I do, so it doesn't really matter what I do." I really think it'd be poor decision making to put him against the Patriots in your first start, but it is what it is. You gotta learn the hard way sometimes. It's not surprising to me the Redskins are 0-4, mainly because the moment Geese went down, they had no run game, and again, before the season even started, no one knew who the fuck Terry McLaurin was.
Exactly.
Paul Richardson, exactly, we don't know who these guys are. The most notable name on that whole team is Josh Norman.
Adrian Peterson.
But people who are actually playing the games.
Yeah.
It's
Adrian Peterson is doing a hell of a job on the bench.
Oh yeah, he's keeping it warm.
Keeping it warm.
And that's the thing, is that's not overly surprising. I think for me, more surprising than anything else is probably the Rams offense struggling as much as they have been. Their defense has been doing okay, obviously not when they allow 55 points. But more than anything else, I mean, the Colts with Jacoby Brissett, the moment Andrew Luck retired, everyone went, oh, shit.
Mm-hmm.
And they were calling them to have no wins, and like, oh, they're done. And, I mean, they're 2-2.
Fans booing.
And that's the thing, is that it's like they've won 2 games when they should be 0-4, which everyone thought they were going to be. So that, out of everything, told the team that should not be where they are right now is the Colts.
Well, that concludes this episode of Armchair Gridiron, episode 4. We'll be back next week, next Tuesday, with Week 5 recaps and Week 6 predictions, and also who you should sit, who you should bench, who you should just cut all together. For Armchair Gridiron, episode 4, I'm Dan.
I'm Chris.
And we'll see you next week. Let's go to the fucking outro!